Mind the doors. Good evening, everyone. This is Stone Gasman live from New York City. And tonight we are going to be doing a commentary for the 1972 film Deathline, directed by Gary Sherman, starring Donald Pleasance, David Ladd, and Christopher Lee. Now, I'll be perfectly honest. I have never heard of this film up until about maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I'm going to explain how exactly I came upon this film, because it's actually a very interesting story. But yeah, this is a film that I had never heard of, and when I finally got it and watched it, I said to myself, "Wow, that is one of the best horror movies of the 1970s," and it might be my vote for the best horror film of 1972. I mean, it is very, very possible. And this is a Blu-ray courtesy of Blue Underground. It came out in 2017, a Blu-ray DVD combo, which I'm now very proud to own in my collection. And so first, let me say hi to a few people. Luke, always great to see you, sir. I'm here and ready to enjoy our movie tonight. Yes. Yeah, like I said, this is like a third, fourth viewing for me. So I'm glad some others who love the film so much. Hey, Cliff, how you doing? A fun one tonight. Oh, yes. Yeah, this is going to be a fun one. I never thought I would watch a movie about cannibalistic dwellers in the London Underground. And it was less graphic and gory than I expected to me. It was the atmosphere that I found just so overwhelming. I fell in love with it immediately. It was like, I was like, wow, where's this movie been my whole life? You know, it's one of those type of experiences. So absolutely. But just to let everybody know, I am paused on a Jay Cantor, Alan Ladd Jr. production. Remember that name, Alan Ladd Jr., because it's very interesting how I ended up doing this on a Sunday night, being right before Halloween. So, but at any rate, so on the count of three, 3, 2, 1, and play. And here we open up on the Soho section of London. And I must say it was a pure delight seeing this movie, especially after I declared Last Night in Soho, directed by Deathline. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Directed by Edgar Wright, excuse me. Yeah, Last Night in Soho, I declared my favorite film of 2021. I saw it twice in the theater. It was a delight seeing it both times. Anya Taylor-Joy is now like my favorite singer of late. And like I said, if you're an Edgar Wright fan and you haven't seen Last Night in Soho, oh man, you have to. Norman Rossington and David Ladd, we will talk about them. Yes. So this was a like I said, a buried treasure, I guess you could say. And it's not like, believe me, I'm not as big a hardcore horror fan as some others. It's not my favorite genre of film, to be perfectly honest. It's up there. But the thing is that, I mean, you know, I've gone, when I go to horror conventions, I usually go there to ask them to sign movies of like other dramatic or comedic performances that they did, which I think they find especially delightful, because I don't think they get a lot of people that ask for signatures for those movies. But here we have Christopher Lee and everything. And so, but like I said, this year was really a process, because I decided to do like all the foreign language films, or, you know, yeah, all the foreign language films in September. And I did all the horror films for 1972. And it's been great. I mean, you know, Dr. Phibes Rises Again, Steven Spielberg's Something Evil, and everything. And so I carefully chose all these films to do for 1972. And I've ended up doing, I think, a good majority of them. There were a couple that I decided to dismiss at the last minute. I was like, and you know what, I'm not going to talk about this one. But and also every Sunday night, I've also been devoted to another series, which is known as the Ladd Company Commentaries. And Alan Ladd Jr., who passed away earlier this year at the age of 83, he's the legendary executive who greenlit Star Wars to George Lucas when he was at 20th Century Fox. And after that, he was sort of, after Empire Strikes Back caused quite a lot of anger and at the studio because of, you know, the deals that Lucas had made and everything. Alan Ladd Jr. ended up leaving and starting his own company, the Ladd Company. And when I was choosing these films, I thought, well, didn't Ladd Company do any horror films at all? Truth is, no, they did not release any horror films. They released 26 films, but none of them are a horror film. The closest one I would call is probably Star 80, which we are going to be doing next week. But like I said, when I realized that this movie was produced by Alan Ladd Jr., but also produced by Paul Maslansky, who many of you should recognize that name as the producer behind the Police Academy series, which of course originated at the Ladd Company. So it all comes together. It all comes together. Produced by Paul Maslansky, from the producer of the Police Academy movies. Here's Deathline. And directed by Gary Sherman. We will, of course, talk more about him. So I said to myself, well, God, I got to do Deathline for, you know, Halloween weekend. So here we are. So this is, like I said, I'm not putting this officially as part of the Ladd Company commentary series, but believe me, if you want to learn everything about that legendary executive and all the movies he greenlit, all the movies he was involved in, go check out that series. So I just wanted to throw that out there real quick. Now, the gentleman on the left that you see going up the stairs there, that is actually the director of photography. That is, in fact, the director of photography, who Alex Thompson, who by this time was an Academy Award winner. Very legendary British cinematographer. He had won the British Society of Cinematography Award for Legend. And he was nominated for Excalibur, excuse me. Yeah, he was nominated for Excalibur, and he eventually won for Legend, but he was also nominated for a 1983 film called Eureka. And then 3 years before his death in the 1990s, he won another British Society of Cinematographers Award for Kenneth Branagh's 4-hour version of Hamlet. The famous unexpurged screen version of Hamlet, which is a definitive. I mean, the only way to answer that is to watch every version of Hamlet, and that would take seriously a year to do, probably in depth. If you were going to study the play and actually take up that challenge, hey, go ahead. But I've seen Kenneth Branagh's version of Hamlet. It is gorgeous. It is a truly gorgeous movie, one of the most gorgeous I remember from that era. And yes, I did see it in the theater. I mean, look, I was in high school at the time. I thought I might as well watch Hamlet, directed by Kenneth Branagh, for 4 hours. And oh my God, I mean, there's so much to like about it, and there's so much to think, well, I don't know if I can sit through this again. But there's no denying it's a gorgeous film, and that's due to Alex Thompson. But if you ask me, my favorite Alex Thompson lensed movie is actually Cliffhanger, the Rennie Harlin directed action thriller set in the Rocky Mountains, but it was actually shot at the Italian Dolomites. And oh my God, I saw it again earlier this year, along with Everest for the first time, as like a double feature of sorts. And oh my God, the photography on both of those were so brilliant that I can't choose which one I prefer. I mean, and both of those settings serve those stories equally as well as vice versa. But he also shot Labyrinth. He also shot Leviathan, Mr. Destiny, Alien 3, The Scarlet Letter. Probably the worst film of his resume, but hey, look, look, I've sat through Hamlet. I sat through The Scarlet Letter. Look, I have much love and respect for Demi Moore now, but oh man, watching her as Hester Prynne was something that I think my father, who was an English teacher, will never forgive the film industry for. And Gary Oldman, hamming it up as Dimmesdale, and Robert Duvall, who was incomprehensible. It's one of the worst screen adaptations of a classic novel ever in the history of film. But that is Alex Thompson's only black mark on his record, because everything else he shot is amazing, including Dr. Phibes Rises Again, which we did a commentary on just a few weeks ago, with Vincent Price. I'm so glad I watched both of those Dr. Phibes movies, by the way, but we're going to be going back to AIP here, because the thing is that Deathline, like a lot of films, I mean, and especially movies, I think from this period in particular, has a very interesting story in that Gary Sherman, the director of this movie, was essentially shooting a commercial. I forget, Procter and Gamble, I think he said. And the producer of that commercial was none other than, are you all sitting down? Are you really all sitting down for this? Because, and I'm sure, I don't know how many people really know, but yeah, that person was in fact Jonathan Demme. The guy behind Silence of the Lambs, which he won the Oscar for Best Director for, and is considered one of the great horror films of the modern era. And I agree, 100%. But he also, huge amount of work with Melvin and Howard, Swing Shift, Something Wild, a really cute little movie with Jeff Daniels and Melanie Griffith from the 80s, which is just a delight to watch. Married to the Mob with Michelle Pfeiffer. Yeah, we're talking that Jonathan Demme. So he was producing this Procter and Gamble commercial that Gary Sherman was doing. And while doing the Procter and Gamble commercial, he just wrote this story for Deathline, which was, inspired by an urban legend, where the workers, when the subways were first being built, the London Underground specifically in the late 19th century, that there would be cave-ins, and that the people that actually survived the cave-ins, basically can't get out, but they still reproduce and they still manage to live, living off anybody and anything that is down there, whether it be rats, look, you get the idea. You get the idea. So, but this is in fact a real, genuine urban legend, and a very frightening one to be clear. And I think that's what makes this movie work so effectively, is that you kind of buy it. You actually kind of buy this premise. And here is the great Donald Pleasance. I've seen so many movies with Donald Pleasance this year. It's insane. I mean, he was in The Pied Piper. I saw that in September and everything. Oh man, he's been. It amazes me, especially how much stuff he did outside of Halloween, because you got to remember he was in The Great Escape, the World War II, or was it The Longest Day? I think it was The Longest Day. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Oh, it was The Great Escape. My bad. I'm confusing movies again. But yeah, it was The Great Escape. One of the great World War II movies. And of course, they talk a lot on the commentary on the Blue Underground Blu-ray how he avoided the going into World War II. He was a conscientious objector, and finally he came around to his senses, and he ended up flying, and he got shot down and everything. Yeah, I mean, he went through a lot during World War II before he got back into acting and everything. And I love this recurring gag with the tea bags. Now, Donald Pleasance, you got to understand, from what I understand, after listening to all these bonus features, the commentary, watching all the interviews, is that he was the kindest, most gentle man. He loved everybody, and he delivered tea to everybody on the set. That's how cool this guy was. I can't get over it. I am, the amazing thing is, of course, a lot of people know him from the Halloween movies, which it's understandable. It's his most famous role. Uh, Honestly, I mean, after watching him in some of his earlier other roles, though, I don't know. I mean, as far as favorite performances, I mean, I would lean towards more something like the 1971 psychological thriller Wake in Fright, which was it was what started the Australian film the Dominoes, you could say. It was one of the first ones to really break out all over the world. And it was essentially about a guy who, he was a school teacher. He goes to this town. He's about to fly to Sydney to be with his girlfriend and everything. And he loses all his money gambling in this dusty, barely anybody there living town. But he finds this huge gambling den, and he just, he starts gambling all his money, and of course he ends up with no more money. But he's kind of dragged in there by the sheriff after a few drinks. So okay, fine, you can buy it. And and Donald Pleasance in the movie plays a kangaroo hunter out there in the middle of the outback, in the middle of nowhere. He's got his shirt off a lot of the time. He's just, whenever he finds himself with a guest, he's actually a doctor, but whenever he has a guest, he feeds them not kangaroo meat, because that's what they do. They hunt kangaroos and they drink beer, and that's what they do. Now, the movie was very controversial for those kangaroo scenes, those kangaroo hunting scenes, but the filmmakers, they felt that, as horrific as it was shooting those scenes, because those were real kangaroos, that we had to show it because people need to know. People need to know that this is something that's absolutely devastating Australia and its country. It's not representative of who we are. We need to stop. That's essentially the landmark Australian psychological horror film, Wake in Fright. And on top of all that, it's from the director of First Blood, the Canadian director Ted Kotcheff. So, I mean, just to let you know the impact that this movie had. But here again, it was lost for so many years, sort of like Deathline and Tam Lin, which is the movie I'm going to be doing later tonight at 10:45. And like Tam Lin, I mean, even though Deathline did very well in Europe, it did very well in the UK, and it did very well in Europe. For American distribution, it was in the hands of American International Pictures, who was behind the Dr. Phibes movies, Samuel Z. Arkoff, and they essentially, they messed with the movie. In fact, there was actually a Rolling Stone article where I believe the title was Butchered. Yeah, that to say the least. And it was retitled Raw Meat. But yeah, exactly. I mean, it all goes together, right? I mean, yeah, butchered like raw meat. And the filmmakers, of course, like, director Gary Sherman, producer Paul Maslansky, and everybody involved in the project were just like, oh, what did you do? It was that kind of attitude, but look, Paul Maslansky, he said on the audio commentary, which is on this Blu-ray, that look, Samuel Z. Arkoff, helped me release my first horror films in the 1960s. So look, I mean, and the crazy thing is, here's what makes the story even crazier, is that Gary Sherman and that he was able to get a deal through Paramount, and so Paramount agreed to distribution. But when he called Paul Maslansky, he said, "Oh, too late. I already sold the AIP." So look, these things happen, okay? These things happen in the industry. You know, it's kind of unfortunate. And look, I'm not putting down AIP. I mean, they put a lot of fun movies out there. I do like the Dr. Phibes movies, seriously. You know, they put out Frogs earlier this year, which I did a commentary on. I decided to pass on The Thing with Two Heads with Ray Milland. But look, the point is that, you know, at the time, look, I mean, one business decision, you never know how these things are going to end up. And, you know, in America, apparently in the United States, this movie is largely known as raw meat. I've seen the posters for it. Of course, I've never seen the movie. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this is a Deathline. Okay. I mean, that's how I discovered the movie. It's Deathline. But until I saw this Blu-ray, of course. And here again, you know, my longtime, a series in terms of honoring Alan Ladd Jr., I figured, oh my God, for the night before Halloween, I need to do Deathline and I need to do Tam Lin, which he in fact co-produced. And I encourage all of you to join me for that one later, directed by Roddy McDowall and starring Ava Gardner. But anyway, so Deathline, it was really a discovery. And Donald Pleasance here, and this is David Ladd, by the way. David Ladd, he was actually Alan Ladd Jr.'s brother. And it's actually really funny how the story went about, because Gary Sherman had written the story, and he was assisted by another writer by the name of Sari Jones, apparently because of British rules in the industry, that if there's an American director, there has to be a British writer. And also it also helps to sell the movie in America if you have an American actor. So the thing is, this is a British horror production, but the producers are American. The co-star here, David Ladd, is American, and the writer Gary Sherman is actually American. So, but we have Donald Pleasance, also one of the great British actors, and we also have a really cool British supporting cast who we will meet momentarily. And so David Ladd had actually started out as a child actor. I don't think I've seen a lot of his movies as a child actor, but he was in the 1953 classic Shane, uncredited as a little boy. But hey, look, that's a hell of a movie. That's a hell of a way to start your career on, let me tell you. But he was also in The Big Land, The Proud Rebel, A Dog of Flanders, Sad Horse, Bonanza, episode of Bonanza, Shirley Temple's Storybook. Yeah, that's the thing. That the child actor that would do stuff like that. That's really cool. And he was also in Gunsmoke and Wagon Train when he got older and everything. And he did a film before this in 1971 called Catlow? Oh yeah, a Western film called Catlow with Yul Brynner and Richard Crenna. First Blood. There you go. Mm-hmm. And he also did. He was also in The Day of the Locust. He actually has a small role in The Day of the Locust. Wild Geese, and the last thing he did was Fantasy Island, and then he went into producing after that. But this is probably his biggest role. I'm pretty sure that this is David Ladd's biggest role. And I was gonna, and this is Norman Rossington, who he's talking to right here, who is his Detective Sergeant Rogers, his assistant here, where, they need to investigate these disappearances. And of course, they just interviewed David Ladd because he had run across somebody, a OBE, and now he's missing in the subway system. So now we launch an investigation here. And here, like I said, here's David Ladd right here. And in the supporting role of his girlfriend here, we have Sharon Gurney, who plays Patricia Wilson. And she didn't do much in terms of film. I think she only did a few other things. But she's very beautiful here. And Yeah, she retired in 1974 essentially, but she was in Deathline, and she also did another movie called The Red Room that same year, and she was also in Crucible of Horror, which I'm sure many horror fans will recognize her from. And in the late 60s, she had done also adaptations of other classic works like The Portrait of a Lady, Nicholas Nickleby, The Way We Live Now, that kind of thing. Oh, she actually did like the Canterbury Tales. She was in the Knight's Tale for I guess for BBC television. That's pretty cool. And she also did 11 episodes of The Doctors in 1970. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I've gone silent. I better drink some water here. I need to take a break real quick. Well, let me say hi to everybody in the chat here real quick. I need to get rid of this first. Okay, so Fairy Tale for Life. Nalu, such a fun movie. Yes, absolutely, absolutely a fun movie. Cheska, always great to see you. The Labyrinth is my favorite movie of all time. Wow, that is awesome. It's funny. Recently on Twitter, people were asking what their favorite David Bowie song is. Well, Magic Dance. I mean, obviously. I mean, that is David Bowie is awesome in that film. I regret I didn't really grow up listening to his music, but no, look, I mean, I will always know David Bowie from Labyrinth. Mm. But it is absolutely a great movie I've seen many times. I actually was drawn to Labyrinth just because I'm a huge Jennifer Connelly fan, which we'll talk about later on Christmas Day when I do the commentary for Once Upon a Time in America, directed by Sergio Leone. And that's not a joke, by the way. That is going to be the second to last Lad Company commentary that I do, and that'll be Christmas Day. But anyway, very important on screen here. We are at the 24-minute mark. At 23 minutes at 23 and a half minutes, we started this long tracking shot. This is a 7-minute tracking shot, which is absolutely insane. You don't see these type of tracking shots in a lot of movies, except maybe Goodfellas. I mean, when he descends down into the to the little drinking area, the club bar area down there. How long is that? Is that longer than Deathline? I'm not certain about that. Maybe somebody in the chat could help me out with that. But no, this is an exceptionally long. And Alan Ladd Jr. and I completely understand his nervousness about a sequence like this. Because he was convinced it was not going to work. He kept saying to Gary Sherman, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. But Gary Sherman countered and kept saying, no, it's going to work. It's going to work. I assure you it's going to work. Because what we're doing in essentially 7 minutes of screen time is absorb this entire area, this caved in area down deep in the London Underground, of these cannibalistic descendants of the workers, where I think I forgot to add in the urban legend that a lot of the people didn't bother helping them to escape because they were Irish, Scottish, Welsh, working class individuals, and they just weren't going to do it. Sadly, but it's very, very sad, but very, very true. And that's where this urban legend kind of spouted from. And it's a hell of an idea for a movie. That's what I'm saying, is that I applaud Gary Sherman for remembering this urban legend and turning it into a hell of a good film. Believe me, my jaw dropped when I went to Rotten Tomatoes and I realized that this movie has a 91% approval rating. My jaw dropped. Literally, I was like, what? I was astonished. I mean, so apparently this is now one of the great horror cult classics, I guess you could say. I mean, Of course, with my ignorance of knowing that this movie existed. And look, the multiple titles just doesn't help. I mean, I look, I never knew about a movie called Raw Meat, and of course, I would never know about a movie called Deathline. I mean, I just think that yeah, it's inevitable. But and even after reading Leonard Maltin's book from cover to cover, I still don't remember it. But that's the thing, is that this has been an amazing discovery. But see, the tracking shot, it's still going. It's still going. You see all of these things. You see all these things, and then you focus on the very two last survivors. Look at that makeup is absolutely extraordinary, and it's a little icky, but it's not graphic. It's not puke in a bucket disgusting. Like I said, I mean, they actually treat these characters with a lot of genuine understanding and respect for the fact that this is just the way life has been for them for a century, which is exceptionally sad. Like I said, I was surprised at how much I was taken aback with this movie in terms of just giving the antagonist the right amount of weight, and also giving the protagonist the same thing. I mean, it's amazing they did. This is just all eerie stuff. Very eerie stuff. And it's funny, when I first when I first realized that Gary Sherman directed this. For some reason, I was thinking. For some reason, I mistook him as the director of The Black Hole. I don't know why, but like I said, this bit also kind of reminds me of The Black Hole. No, that movie was made by Gary Nelson, completely different director. Yeah, completely different director. Gary Nelson, Gary Sherman. Okay, is that forgivable? I think it is. Yeah, I think it's forgivable. Sure. See, this tracking shot is still going, but it's awesome. I mean, Alan Ladd Jr. He admitted on the featurette on the Blu-ray that he admitted that he was completely turned around by it. It was like, okay, you were right, it worked. Because like I said, he tells that story about and Gary Sherman tells that story about like, okay, well, on this day we did like 22 setups, which is like out of this world, and then well, we spent all day today, all 8 hours today, setting up for this one shot, which is this entire shot that we saw right here. And of course, as a producer standpoint, you can understand, what, you didn't shot one thing. You didn't shout anything at all. So look, you got to put your trust into people sometimes. And look, Alan Ladd Jr. was one of those guys that it seemed like, no, he put his trust into people. He realized soon and early on that, wow, they can create some extraordinary images on the screen. And this is just, I've never seen this in any other horror movie. This kind of 7-minute tracking shot that is so awesome, and it's finally over. I mean, we are now at 30 minutes 50 seconds. That was insane. That was 7 minutes and 15 seconds, maybe 25 seconds, I don't know, but that's got to be some kind of record. I mean, I may be wrong. I don't know. Maybe Guinness. I mean, I don't know if Guinness would say that's but that is absolutely insane. But yeah, I mean, I love the look. I love these 1970s uh, uh, London underground scenes. I love the detail. I mean, I look, the New York City subway system is absolute crap when it, when it comes to this. And granted, there was rats down there and everything, but just man, I would have loved to have been on those subways. I would have loved to have done that. I mean, I've actually lived in the United Kingdom for 2 years, and actually, there's a lot of scenes later in Tam Lin which reminded me of driving out into Cornwall and Holywell Bay, where I lived for a time in a beach house. Because I was working with the Royal Air Force there when I was in the Navy, and it was just it took me back to visiting all these pubs and everything. Oh, it's just awesome. Yeah, I want to visit England again before I expire, because it just I kind of miss it now. Now, this actor right here who plays basically the man, well, he's credited as the man, although he is essentially referred to in some quarters as the cannibal. He's played by a man by the name of Hugh Armstrong. Now, let me stipulate that there is an interview with Hugh Armstrong on this Deathline Blu-ray. And I forget the logo. It was by like Eating Mouse or Eating Rat Productions or something like that. There was a rat in the logo, but it was not done by Blue Underground. I think it was done separately by another company. But yeah, it was basically his final on-camera interview where he talks about working on Deathline, and he talks about working with Gary Sherman and the rest of the company and the crew. And, he doesn't like to watch himself in movies. And of course, with Deathline, I mean, it was no exception. But he had, I love this interview. And okay, let's go ahead and dive into the Blu-ray here, because I wanted to talk about it. I'm so glad I picked this up. This came out in 2017. It's got 1080p HD resolution, widescreen 1.85. English mono, English subtitles, French subtitles, and Spanish subtitles. As far as extras, there is a audio commentary with co-writer director Gary Sherman, producer Paul Maslansky, and assistant director Louis Moore O'Farrell. I listened to this commentary from front to back. It's so much fun to listen to. It's very informative, very funny. I mean, it's actually, I mean, and that's the thing, is that there is actually a nice amount of humor, not an overwhelming amount of humor, but there's a nice amount of humor in Deathline. And you could tell, oh, these were the guys that made Deathline. Of course, these guys made Deathline. I mean, absolutely. And they are just a joy to listen to. They are an absolute joy to listen to. And probably my favorite story that they revealed on there was the day that they shot the scene with Christopher Lee. And believe it or not, Christopher Lee actually had so much admiration for Donald Pleasance. He's just like, I got to work with him. I got to work with him. But, he only had one scene in the movie, which is coming up. But so yeah, but they talk about that, and we'll get to it when we come to it. But I think they also said this was Paul Maslansky's living room, and it was just kind of redesigned to something that would not be which would not be in Maslansky's taste. Let's put it that way. But yeah, I mean. And also the other extra features on here, we have Tales from the Tube, interview with co-writer director Gary Sherman, and executive producers Jay Cantor and Alan Ladd Jr. And also From the Depths, interview with star David Ladd and producer Paul Maslansky. Again, wonderful to watch. Mind the Doors, interview with star Hugh Armstrong, who, like I said, just passed away, literally, very soon after this interview was done. And there's a Deathline trailer, there's a Raw Meat trailer, there's a TV spot, radio spots, poster and still gallery, and also a collectible booklet featuring new writing by authors Michael Gingold and Christopher Gulo. Now, okay, so here we have the great Christopher Lee, and we've already watched several movies this month and have done several commentaries on Christopher Lee's movies. Horror Express being a particular favorite. where he worked with Peter Cushing, as he did many times over at Hammer Films and everything. And I love what they say on the commentary that collectively these guys have done about 400 movies. That's not a joke. I mean, Norman Rossington has been in just as many movies as Donald Pleasance and Christopher Lee. It's mind blowing, and yet he's really only known, on British shores. But yeah, he's just as big in England as Christopher Lee and Donald Pleasance. Absolutely. Now, as you can see, we haven't seen Donald and Christopher in the same shot yet. Well, as most people who've probably never even heard the commentary and visually can just probably tell, especially if you've seen the actor's other movies, is that Christopher Lee is like very tall and Donald Pleasance is very short. And so let's put it this way. Gary Sherman and, of course, the cinematographer Alex Thompson was like, well, wait a minute. We can't. It's impossible. We can't shoot it. So what they did is that they filmed them. Basically, this is all separate material until he sits down. Now they're in the same shot. Which actually, if you think about it, is brilliant. It's a brilliant introduction to Christopher Lee's character, but we finally see them both in the same shot. It worked up to that. But that was done all separately, which is amazing. It's absolutely amazing, and it's a great. And that's Christopher Lee's only scene. It's his only scene, and it's gone before you know it. It's amazing. Great cameo by Christopher Lee, though. Great cameo. Mm-hmm. Just to show off some of the booklet real quick. And seriously, pick this up. I mean, pick this up from Blue Underground if you can, because it's just gorgeous. And, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, it's amazing. I've only bought a few Blue Underground products over the years, I regret to say. I mean, I remember I got Toolbox Murders at one point on DVD, and I think I got a few other things. But yeah, I mean, I love this. This is awesome right here. This is, and that's what I'm saying, is that pretty much everything about this movie I pretty much love now. I love the makeup. I love the London Underground. I love the tracking shots. I love the actors. This is awesome. This is just an awesome movie. I think it almost transcends the horror genre, to be honest, to be something even higher than that. I mean, because like I said, I'm astonished. I'm very, very astonished. I never watched this before. But yeah, there's the raw meat poster right there. Not as delicious, I guess you could say. I mean, it looks more like a cannibal Holocaust movie, or it's like some kind of Mondo Bizarro, type of film that only the most lenient of exploitation fans would check out. But oh yeah, and so we're going to talk about Gary Sherman here, because he later directed a slasher film called Dead and Buried, which I've admittedly never seen. I think it's about time I watch it now. So that is going to be very, very added to the list, very, very high on the list. But yeah, I've never seen Dead and Buried, and I have to. And focuses on a small town wherein a few tourists are murdered, but their corpses begin to reanimate. Yeah, with a screenplay written by Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett. Film was initially banned as a video nasty in the early 80s, and that, of course, was in the United Kingdom. And but it had received praise from critics regarding Stan Winston's special effects and Jack Albertson's performance. And yes, we're talking about the Jack Albertson that played Grandpa Joe in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and also won an Academy Award for the 1968 movie. The subject was Roses, which was a Pulitzer adaptation of a Pulitzer Prize winning play. But yeah, so I intend to check out Dead and Buried for sure. Although we haven't gotten to some of his later ones yet. Now, look, Gary Sherman has directed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 films. He's directed 8 films. He did a documentary short film in 1966 called The Legend of Bo Diddley. And then he did Deathline. This was his feature film debut. And of course, he was privileged to be working with such luminaries as Christopher Lee and Donald Pleasance. And he also directed the cult classic Vice Squad from 1982, which is actually one of the Cinema Snobs votes for one of his best movies of 1982. I don't think I've ever seen it, but I know exactly what it is. I guess I better add that to the list as well. After watching Deathline, now I want to watch all his films. But here's the thing. In 1987, he made Wanted Dead or Alive, a movie with Rutger Hauer, which, of course, I've not seen. But it is based on the Steve McQueen early 1950s television series. Excuse me, 1958. That's when it Wanted Dead or Alive with Steve McQueen, which is actually one of the best westerns of that era. But unfortunately, it got negative reviews. I mean, Dead and Buried is considered a classic in some quarters. Vice Squad as well. But Wanted Dead or Alive is, got mediocre reception when it came out, and then after that, he made the infamous Poltergeist 3. I have tried watching Poltergeist 3. It's bad. It's bad. There's no other way to get around that. I mean, as much as I adore the original, as much as I hold the originals in such high regard, that here again, I actually grew up in a neighborhood where my house was exactly the same structure. I had the entire second floor to myself. And behind me was a giant window with probably the oldest tree in the world. I did not sleep well for months. Okay, let's just put it that way. I did not sleep well for months after I saw Poltergeist, and I saw it probably when I was 9 or 10. But I mean, it's one of the pinnacles of the genre. And yes, I do believe it is a Tobe Hooper film, not a Steven Spielberg film. I just want to throw that out there as well. Tobe Hooper, yeah, that's how you pronounce his name, I believe. And I'm not even a big fan of Poltergeist 2, really. Look, the effects in Poltergeist 2 are amazing. Kane never did anything for me. I know people love Kane. He never did anything for me. He just, no, he didn't. And I'm looking forward to that Poltergeist documentary, where Craig T. Nelson, Jo Beth Williams, and a lot of people who've never really talked about the film before are actually talking about the film now. And, especially about, the tragedy of Heather O'Rourke and everything, which I'm not going to go into. But, and that's the thing, is that I don't want to get into the Poltergeist 3 post-production woes and, everything that Heather O'Rourke endured, which is, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to get into it. I just don't want to get into it because I don't know enough about it. And I don't think anybody does, but there is supposedly a documentary coming out soon, which is going to be as incendiary as it gets when it comes to the Poltergeist film series. And I, for one, look forward to it more than anybody else. That's just the truth. But look, Poltergeist 3 here again. I tried watching it. How many times did they say Carol Ann in that movie? I implore anybody, if you actually watch Poltergeist 3, do a drinking game. Every time they say Carol Ann, take a shot. I challenge you. It's impossible. It's impossible. It makes Poltergeist 2 look good. I will say that. It makes Poltergeist 2 look really, really good. Okay, I will say that much. I just found it unbearable to watch. Even Laura Flynn Boyle couldn't save it for me. I mean, even she couldn't save it for me. I'm sorry, but I do think it's absolutely horrible. One of the worst horror sequels ever made. And look, with all due respect to Gary Sherman, I intended to watch pretty much everything else he did. Hell, I'll even check out Wanted Dead or Alive with Rutger Hauer. But no, I will never, ever watch Poltergeist 3 again. I just, no. Being a fan of the UK and Edgar Wright, you may want to check out the Pure Cinema podcast from October 3rd, where Edgar spends nearly 2.5 hours talking about overlooked British horror. Oh, I'm going to keep that up. I'm going to keep that up for a while. Thank you so much, Cliff. Absolutely. That sounds awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, last night in Soho, I can't put into words how much I was dazzled by that movie. It was a time travel movie, it was a ghost movie, and it was a toxic male masculinity movie. It was everything. And of course, the most wonderful thing is you have the legendary. Uh, why is the name escaping me? Yeah, the legendary Diana Rigg from On Her Majesty's Secret Service and the Avengers and everything. But you got Terrence Stamp. I mean, look, I mean, and of course Matt Smith kind of reminded me of Lawrence Harvey from Manchurian Candidate. I mean, it's like I said, it's a 1960s Soho neon drenched nightmare, and I loved every step of the way. And I loved the music in it. I loved everything about it. Edgar Wright is, and also on top of all that, he also made a spectacular documentary last year as well called The Sparks Brothers, which I also have on Blu-ray, which is right here. You can't really see it very well, but yeah, it's right there. It's a 2.5 hour documentary about a band named Sparks that has been around for 50 years and has released 25 albums. They are closing in on 80 years old, and they are still playing to sold out shows around the world. So, need I say more? And Edgar Wright actually appears on screen. He just calls himself Fanboy. If that didn't sell you on the Sparks Brothers, I don't know what will. And it's got interviews from everybody from Meatloaf to, musicians galore who just wax poetic about Sparks, and that they're so unique that there will be never another band like them ever again, ever. And Edgar Wright has been in love with them ever since the 1970s, and he really felt the need to make it. I think it should have won an Oscar. Honestly, I think it should have won the Oscar or the BAFTA. It was extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. But I don't think that we've talked about. Well, oh no, we have. We have talked about the actor who plays the man. The woman who just died. Her name was June Turner. Okay. Now, Norman Rossington, who I've been pointing out to as the detective, along with Christopher Lee here. He was born in 1928 in Liverpool, and he passed in Manchester in 1999 at the age of 70 years old. And he's best remembered for his roles in The Army Game, the Carry On films. Okay, I've seen a couple of the Carry On films. For those of you that don't know, Carry On was a series of British comedies that came out in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. They were highly profitable, and yet they are virtually unknown of in America. I mean, unless you watched them, unless you were lucky enough to watch them on PBS, or maybe it was near a library with a massive foreign film section, or because I don't think they ever played on television. I honestly don't think they ever played on television in the United States. But I've seen the first two Carry On movies, Carry On Sergeant and Carry On Nurse. And let's just say, if you're not a fan of British humor, don't bother. But, hey, they do have their fans. Their last film was, I think, in 1992 or something like that. I'm surprised they actually haven't rebooted that series yet. But he's also known for his roles in the Beatles movies, like Hard Day's Night, which he was especially well known for at the time when he did it. But his first film role was in the 1956 film Three Men in a Boat. Rossington went on to Carry On Sergeant, the first Carry On film. See, I just mentioned that. Carry On Nurse, Carry On Regardless. Rossington also played notable serious roles in St. Joan and the classic 1960 British New Wave film Saturday Night and Sunday Morning, playing alongside Albert Finney in the latter's first starring role. In 1956, 1958, he acted in the first of 2 Titanic films, A Night to Remember, as a steward unable to communicate with non-English speaking passengers. Rossington would return in a second Titanic film, playing the Sergeant at Arms in SOS Titanic in 1979. Rossington is the only performer to work in a Beatles film, A Hard Day's Night, and an Elvis Presley film, Double Trouble. He remembered Presley during filming as, quote, quiet man who sat by himself in a corner and who would often borrow my newspaper. Did Baz Luhrmann ever put that in the Elvis movie? Because that would have been that would be super interesting. I'm going to read it again. I don't care. He remembered Elvis Presley during filming as a, quote, quiet man who sat by himself in a corner and who would often borrow my newspaper. Hey, respect the man, respect the king, whatever he wants, whatever he wants. But let's see. From the 1970s onwards, Rossington mainly appeared in television, including roles in His and Hers, the Wednesday play Casanova, Carry On Christmas, Crown Court, I, Claudius, Z-Cars, Big Jim and the Figaro Club, and in the title role of Big Jim, The Bill and the Last of the Summer Wine. Now, that show I've actually watched on PBS before, Last of the Summer Wine. Yeah. He also told the stories from The Adventures of Portland Bill. His final appearances before his death were Heartbeat in 1996, Sharp's Regiment as Sergeant Horatio Haverkamp, and in 1996, and What's a Carry On in 1998. Yeah, and his hobbies included woodwork, skiing, golfing, and languages. But he also did a number of other films as well. I mean, he was actually in The Longest Day and Lawrence of Arabia. He played Private Clow in the Longest Day and Corporal Jenkins, uncredited, in Lawrence of Arabia. And then he was in Hard Day's Night, Those Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines, a really underrated little British comedy called The Wrong Box from 1966. A pretty good little, crime comedy with Michael Caine and Dudley Moore. And Peter Cook and Peter Sellers, John Mills. That's what I'm saying. Check out The Wrong Box if you want something a bit off the beaten track. That's an interesting one. That's a real interesting one. He was in the 1968 version of The Charge of the Light Brigade, which I actually have seen that, and the 1936 version. I prefer the 1936 version with Errol Flynn and Olivia de Havilland. But yeah, and A Night to Remember, Joseph Andrews, 1979's Prisoner of Zenda, also with Peter Sellers, and House of the Long Shadows in 1983. So yeah, he did a good number of movies, and a great amount of television as well. And that's what I'm saying. You combine all these credits with Christopher Lee and Donald Pleasance, and yeah, you have in excess of about 400 films. Absolutely. So, okay, where are we now? I know I've been rambling. I mean, I know I've been paying attention, but let's see. We are 55 minutes in. We are 55 minutes and 20 seconds into Deathline. I know I'm not going to mention the Raw Meat title again. It's funny on the commentary track. I mean, that was the first title that was dropped instead of Deathline. He's like, oh, no, that's the bad story. Yeah, that's AIP for you. But yeah, if you're a fan of this movie, I mean, you need to pick up this Blu-ray. And I believe there is a Region 2 release of Deathline as well. Actually, that'd be something to double check here real quick. I do have a thing of mentioning what the difference is between different versions across the pond and everything. Now, the British Deathline came out in 2018, a year after this. So it's got an awesome cover, but it's courtesy of Network. Yeah, so it came out about a year after the Blue Underground, and I'm pretty certain that they probably used the same transfers for them. I'd be willing to bet that. But the British version, the Region Two version, has it has the same interview with Hugh Armstrong, who plays the man or the cannibal. There's a limited collectible booklet written by Laura Main, and then there was a theatrical trailer, image gallery, and PDF material. Oh, but what's interesting about this British version is that, and this is for, I think the most hardcore of collectors, but they actually have the original theatrical exhibition card that says this movie has a certificate rating of X. Yeah, it was rated X upon release. Basically, it was rated X upon release, and you actually see the original theatrical exhibition card, which is super cool. I mean, I actually like those on the British prints. Like, I mean, I've seen them on, Roman Polanski's Repulsion and many other films, and I think they're super cool. But you get more with the Blue Underground, I think. Yeah, you do get a lot more with the Blue Underground. In fact, like I said, at Blu-ray.com, I mean, the video, audio, extras, all four and a half, 5 stars. I mean, they really do highly praise this release. Now, the reviewer wasn't exactly in love with the movie. He only gave it 3 stars, but he recognized that this was a Blu-ray DVD combo that went the extra mile and everything. But he gave the video quality 4.5 stars. Brand new 2K master, looks really good in high def. It is precisely because Blue Underground decided to go back to the OCN that the darker footage from the subway looks excellent. There are delicate shadows and nuances, and that almost certainly would have been invisible on an older master. During the well-lit footage, clarity and depth are also very pleasing. There are no traces of problematic degraining or sharpening adjustments, though it would have been nice to have some minor optimizations to have grain better exposed. The color grading is also very convincing. There is a good range of solid and healthy primaries and proper nuances. Image stability is excellent. Lastly, there are no distracting debris, cuts, damage marks, stains, warped or torn frames to report. And it is a region-free Blu-ray release, absolutely. Therefore, you will play it on your player, regardless of your geographical location. Now, just real quick, I need to pause. Look at the lower hall sign. See the guy exiting with the beard? That was producer Paul Maslansky with the beige coat and the beard. I mean, exiting that theater, and they were joking on the commentary. It's like, "Oh, here's your Oscar-winning performance, Paul." And there's some great humor in this scene too, with Donald Pleasance with the sausages. In England they call them bangers, actually. This is good stuff. This is just all great stuff. Hope you're all enjoying the movie so far. Because I certainly am. We are approximately 1 hour in. We're approximately 1 hour into Deathline. Yeah, we got about 28 minutes left to go. And it goes by in a breeze. That's another thing. I mean, just, like a train whizzing by. It doesn't go on for too long. Cockfosters, I'm not going to comment on that. I don't know what that's all about, but and so, yeah, here's David Ladd and his girlfriend. David Ladd, I think, plays, he plays like an American student and everything. And of course, Patricia is his girlfriend. I like that. I love that jacket that she wears. That is a super cool jacket, the red and the black. And here's where sadly they become separated. And this made me jump when I first saw this. This made me jump. I thought I was going to have a heart attack right away. Boom. Right away, without warning. I mean, she's in danger, and and then pretty much right after you think that, it's instantaneous. Right after you think that, boom, just grabs her, and that's it. And you know that she is in serious serious trouble, because it's not that he wants to eat her, it's that he wants to mate with her. And that is a terrifying, of course, a terrifying uh, idea. So, and here again, everybody on the bonus material, they had nothing but praise for Donald Pleasance, for Alan Ladd Jr. It was great seeing Alan Ladd Jr. Being interviewed before his death, because he passed away at 83 this year. And I still need to watch that documentary. They actually made a documentary about him a couple of years ago, which is named Laddie, and that's who he was known as in Hollywood. But he produced these two odd little horror films that have somehow become not only my personal favorites, but they become two of the biggest cult films, I think, from the 70s. And I'm not exaggerating about that. Tam Lin, when we get to Tam Lin, oh my God. The mountain of bonus features on this thing is so overwhelming. It's a volcano. It's an eruption of anything you would want to know about a movie directed by Roddy McDowall and starring Ava Gardner. Trust me, if you've never seen Tam Lin before, it's on YouTube. Watch it, watch it, watch it, watch it, watch it. Martin Scorsese managed to rescue it from the black hole of cinema. But anyway, we'll get to Tam Lin when we get to Tam Lin. it just, oh man, I can't wait to talk about it. I can't wait to talk about it. I am so in love with that movie. And I've seen it before. I've seen it a few times before over the years, but I'm finally taking the plunge and doing a commentary on it. And here again, a perfect double feature, I think. Both these films, Deathline and Tam Lin, they were both produced by Alan Ladd Jr. in slightly different capacities, but he was still a producer. And they were both butchered by AIP and released under different titles. Oddly enough, like I said, Deathline was supposed to be Paramount, and Tam Lin was a different situation altogether. But yeah, I mean, both of these films were mauled by AIP when they were released in the United States. Deathline became Raw Meat, and Tam Lin became The Devil's Widow. You get the idea. And they were released in rather, truncated and rather poorly realized edits that just kind of ruined what the filmmakers intended. And of course, going across the pond with a different company, particularly one that's more on the lower, like independent, bordering on exploitation scale. Well, that's what you're going to get when the intentions were, of course, completely different. This is a horror film with class, dare I say it. Guillermo del Toro apparently loves this movie to death. He's seen it countless times, and he credits his entire career to seeing this movie in Mexico City. It's not a joke. I honestly had no idea that this was a treasure waiting to be discovered. It really, really was for me. I love pretty much every aspect about this movie. And here again, 88 minutes. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It goes by like a subway car. It just goes by, and I love it. I love it for that. It doesn't go too far with its its unsavory and grimy elements. There's just enough. There's just enough. The makeup is appropriate, appropriate without being disgusting. And like I said, and the actors, the performances by everybody, top notch. Absolutely top notch. Even David Ladd I liked, and he got kind of mauled critically by Roger Ebert when this movie came out. And of course, he ended up doing only a couple other things and leaving, but leaving acting behind and going and producing like his brother. But no, I love everybody in this movie. Everybody delivered. Everybody did. I mean, his performance here as the man Hugh Armstrong is petrifying. It's only until he speaks for the first time that, like, wow, it's just it's just amazing. It's a real discovery. Anybody out there in the chat, let me know anything you'd like to share about Deathline, anything that you particularly like about the movie. I'd be eager to share it with everybody and everything. So, but yeah, I mean, I kind of exhausted myself now, I think, of everything I've been talking about. But give me a minute here. Oh, so the film was just distributed in the United Kingdom by Rank Film Distributors, but of course AIP released it October of 1973 in Los Angeles. So it didn't see a release for a whole year, just like Tam Lin. Here again, you know. The movie was edited by Geoffrey Foote, and he was a British film editor born in Putney and began his career with Ealing Studios. Let me say real quick. Ealing Studios, they released a lot of comedies, a lot of caper comedies with like Alec Guinness from Star Wars. But they did release one of the great horror classics, which is a horror anthology from 1945 called Dead of Night, which is famous for its final story featuring a Michael Redgrave and his malevolent dummy. He's a ventriloquist, and his malevolent dummy, when he takes over the screen, it has haunted audiences for decades. It has literally haunted audiences for decades. And this came from a comedy studio, which is even more extraordinary. It's brilliant. And with all due respect to Creepshow, with all due love and respect to Trick or Treat and Creepshow, even VHS, even those horror anthologies, the Amicus Productions, I still think Dead of Night is the greatest and of all horror anthology films. It's extraordinary. It's absolutely extraordinary, and you all have to check it out if you have not yet. But Geoffrey Foote, he had edited films like The Passionate Friends, Madeline, The Galloping Major, The Sound Barrier, Rob Roy, The Highland Rogue from 1953, not the 1990s version, Trouble in Store, Fortune is a Woman, Blue Murder at St. Trinian's, The Trials of Oscar Wilde, 1960, The Long Ships, Genghis Khan. That's the movie. That's the infamous movie with Omar Sharif and James Mason and Eli Wallach and Telly Savalas. It was this 2-hour bomb that came out in 1965, and then he did Deathline, and then he edited one of my all-time favorite horror films, one of the scariest I've ever seen. And you're all going to be shocked on this revelation because, well, look, I mean, I am not a fan of The Shining. I have never been a fan of The Shining. I can't watch it because of the abuse that Shelley Duvall went through at the hands of Stanley Kubrick. And I will never be a fan of The Shining, even though I don't think it's an awful movie. It is a well-made movie, a hell of a well-made movie, but I can't watch it. I can't watch it for so many reasons. In 1980, that's when The Shining came out. We also had The Awakening in Canada, which is a terrifying film. One of the greats with George T. Scott. We also had Friday the 13th, which was a mega hit on Mother's Day weekend, and rightfully so, rightfully and deservedly so. And finally, we had a little Disney film called The Watcher in the Woods, which Geoffrey Foote, that was his last movie that he edited, which of course went through a lot of editing, as a lot of people who know about Watcher in the Woods and its crazy story are aware of. But it was basically going to be Disney's answer to The Exorcist. And if that all sounds like a joke to you, that was a real rat that he bit in. By the way, that was a real rat, evidently. But The Watcher in the Woods is a Disney film based on a young adult novel that came out in the 1970s. And it features an ice skating star by the name of Lynn Holly Johnson, who plays the spitting image of Bette Davis's daughter. Yes, the legendary Bette Davis from the golden age of Hollywood, from such legendary films as Jezebel, The Little Foxes, all about Eve. I mean, look, Bette Davis is one of the greatest of all actresses from that era. And she starred in The Watcher in the Woods, this little Disney film. And basically, her daughter disappeared 30 years before. Lynn Holly Johnson shows up and has a striking resemblance. And Bette Davis apparently is aware of some kind of haunted force in the woods, which I'm not going to give anything away for those who you that haven't seen it. It is not what you think, and it's certainly not what you would assume. It's a. I think it makes The Shining look like Sesame Street. There, I said it. I said it. I may be in the minority. I will always probably be the only person that ever has that opinion, but I've shown it to many people over the years, many horror fans over the years, and they were automatically transfixed by it. Like what the hell is this? It came out in a dark time in Disney's history. It would make a perfect double feature with Something Wicked This Way Comes. It really would. It's phenomenal. I mean, those mirror sequences still scare me to this very day. And it's just the journey of discovering what is going on in these woods and in the surrounding areas that it treats. I mean, it's very much a mystery with horrific horrific elements, and it's terrifying what may happen at the end. And I think it's a legendary Disney horror film that the studio has despised for many, many years. But I did a commentary last year with Scott Michael Bosco, who was actually at the sneak preview, at the infamous 1980 sneak preview of Watcher in the Woods in New York City, and edited by Jeffrey Foote. The entire audience of, critics and those who were able to get in with guest tickets and everything, including Scott Michael Bosco, were paralyzed. They were so chilled. And at the climax, when the Watcher finally revealed itself, standing ovation. That is not an exaggeration. I promise you that is not an exaggeration. Look up Scott Michael Bosco's writings. Yet the irony of ironies is that not one critic in that room gave it a positive review. And it is one of the great tragedies, I think, in all of horror cinema history. Why did none of them give? Well, the last 5 minutes, they felt stupid that a child knew what was going on and they didn't. In a roundabout way. I mean, that's more or less why they were so, kind of upset. And they felt like they were cheated. They felt like they were duped. And there were things in the press conference afterward. There was a lot of miscommunication, a lot of misunderstandings, missing footage, which apparently explains certain things. It became a nightmare, and Disney panicked, despite the fact that they were extremely impatient with The Watcher in the Woods. And it got a re-release the next year. It was kind of cleaned up a bit, but we didn't see the Watcher again. And, it's only until DVD, when Scott Michael Bosco was working at Anchor Bay, in which, in a massive fight with Disney, where he was only able to get the deleted footage for 24 hours to put on the DVD before Disney demanded it get back, because he knew somebody at Disney. It's like, hey, can you sneak in the vault and get this footage? Well, because Disney is saying no every fucking time. So we need to get this footage. Mission Impossible style. They got the footage, and then Disney gave them an ultimatum. Send that tape back in 24 hours. The fuck? Yeah. All 100% true. All 100% true. And look, I know does that all sound insane? I don't know. It's one of the great backstories I've ever found out in my life about any film in any genre. It's one of the most amazing backstories I've ever read. So Jeffrey Foote, I love you, man. Thank you so much. But yeah, he was born in 1915 and he passed away in 2010. Uh, had about 15 credits to his name. So yeah. And the music in Deathline is courtesy of Will Malone, a British music producer and arranger who worked with artists including Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Todd Rundgren, The Verve, Massive Attack, Depeche Mode, and Italian rocker Gianna Nannini. In 1976, Malone and Lou Reisner covered a Beatles song, You Never Gave Me Your Money, for the musical documentary All This in World War II. Malone also did the string arrangements for several songs by collaborative techno group Uncle, and that's Uncle with a K. Malone released an eponymous solo album in 1970 and another called Motherlight, and composed the score for the cult horror film Deathline in 1972. Yep. So let's go ahead and check where we are. Timestamp. We are 1 hour, 17 minutes and 40 seconds. 1 hour, 17:45. And we basically have about less than 10 minutes to go, or we're pretty much almost done here with Deathline. Now, we're going to start Tam Lin at 10:45. I originally set it for 10:30, but I'm going to need a few minutes. I'm going to need a few more minutes. I'm going to need about 15 minutes here. So I'm changing the time to 10:45. And like I said, you can check my channel. I'm going to get the link here in a minute. I think you'll be struck by the picture for the commentary because it features Ava Gardner in bed with Ian McShane, who, the Continental Hotel manager in the John Wick films. Yep, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Okay, so here is the link for the Tam Lin commentary. Like I said, it's going to start at 10:45. I'm going to keep that up. Yeah, I just changed it. Did I just change it? Yeah. Okay, it's changed now. Good. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna go do that at 10:45 as I get some water and go to the bathroom, do some other stuff. But we'll be ready for Tam Lin at 10:45 p.m. Yeah. And like I said, I highly encourage you all to check it out with me. And it is available on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube. Just put in Tam Lin 1970 and we'll watch it. But it's a folk horror movie, in the tradition of like The Witch and The Wicker Man and movies like that. And it just features Ava Gardner as this witch who is able to control a bunch of young, young good-looking people, coven, you could say, and including stud Ian McShane from the John Wick films. And it's based on a Scottish folk tale and a Robert Burns poem. But like I said, directed by Roddy McDowall and starring Ava Gardner. And it's one of the most underrated and unique marriages in cinema history. I really do think it is. So definitely recommend you all check it out. That will be at 10:45 p.m. And if you're wondering how long it goes, it's 107 minutes. So we'll probably be finished with it about 12:30. We'll be finished with it about 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. But yeah, as Deathline concludes here, we got a great little climax here in the, like I said, the cave-ins of the London Underground. And God, that makeup is so great. It's so great. And like I said, it doesn't pile on. It doesn't pile on the ickiness. You don't overdose on it. You get just enough. Well, and also you don't want to dwell on the makeup too long and look for flaws. Let's put it that way too. But yeah, excellent makeup, excellent actors all the way. I mean, Donald Pleasance, bravo. Alan Ladd Jr., bravo. And also the producer, Paul Maslansky, and director Gary Sherman. But they made this truly awesome little gem in 1972, which, like I said, in only the past 10, 12 years has it really, been recognized as a horror classic and one of the best of the 1970s, I think. And yeah, it should be a staple. I think it should be an absolute staple on everybody's 1970s horror list. I would put it. I would pretty much put it up there with like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Black Christmas and well, not Toolbox Murders, but Toolbox Murders is okay. But I mean, I love the commentary on Toolbox Murders. I mean, every time I watch that, put on that movie, I just put on the commentary. It's a great commentary for that. I might as well pick up the Blu-ray for that. Give Blue Underground a little bit more business here, but maybe next year. Yeah, no problem, Cliff. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you everybody for coming out tonight as well. I mean, Luke, Cliff, Fairy Tale for Life, Jessica. Love you guys. You guys are awesome. Please spread the word. I mean, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. I don't say that a lot. Just to let you know, I don't say that. I don't say that in every commentary. But yeah, I mean, I throw it out like every once in a while. Just maybe once every week or something. Spread the word. That kind of thing. But we'll be doing Tam Lin, like I said, at 10:45. Hope you can all join me for that. And tomorrow night, Halloween night. We will be doing a 50th anniversary commentary for Lucio Fulci's Don't Torture a Duckling. I do have the Blu-ray. I don't think I've dug it out yet. I don't think it's on this side. Okay, never mind. I do have the Blu-ray. I just got to dig it out. But yeah, we'll be doing Lucio Fulci's Don't Torture a Duckling at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And then at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, tomorrow night, we will be doing a 100th anniversary commentary. Yes, a century commentary for Benjamin Christensen's Haxan Witchcraft Through the Ages. You don't want to miss it. My favorite genre in film is silence, and Haxan is my favorite silent horror. And yes, it even eclipses Nosferatu. It even arises above Phantom of the Opera with Lon Chaney. Yeah, I mean, hands down, my favorite silent horror of all time. And I will be doing a 100th anniversary commentary for it tomorrow at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't miss it. Well, I'm sure a lot of people will miss it because, look, it's Halloween. Everybody's going to go out trick-or-treating and stuff like that. But just to let you know, those commentaries will be tomorrow night. And I apologize. I probably should have more like Halloween decorations. But yeah, that was something I forgot to do. So, maybe next year. Thank you so much, Luke. Thank you so much. Yeah, tonight was fantastic. Thanks so much, Stone. Thank you. Mm. Mm. Any closing thoughts on anybody in the chat on Deathline? Now's the time. But yeah, we got about 2 minutes left here. 2 minutes. So, like I said, any final comments? Now's the time. I mean, do you all agree that this is a horror classic that should be regarded as? I think I'm ready to go all in and say it's the best of 72. I haven't seen Duckling yet. I'm going to watch it literally right after I'm finished with the Tam Lin tonight. But yeah, Deathline may in fact be my favorite horror movie of 1972. It may very well be. It is it exceeded my expectations in many, many different ways. Wonderful cast, wonderful script, uh, wonderful bonus features on the Blu-ray. One of the best horror movies I've seen. Yeah, I adore it now, and so glad I picked this Blu-ray DVD combo from Blue Underground. Thanks very much to them for putting this out. This is awesome. It's just awesome. Yeah, go to eBay or Amazon, pick up a copy. Yeah, don't let this one get away. It was a really, really wonderful film. Christopher Lee, Stratton Villiers, MI5. Yes, the great Christopher Lee. Yep, yep. Made entirely on location in London, England by KL Productions Limited. And what an appropriately haunting final shot for the great, great, great movie Deathline. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Thank you so much. I will see you all at the Tam Lin commentary. I will leave this link up for just a few more minutes, and I'll jump over and start that. I'll see you all in about 15 minutes.